Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, welcome back, everyone. This will be the continuation of the previous talk with a very interesting case study how computers were used to design a flying cyber steel. Okay, we'll take a case of a component in an aircraft as example. But before that, we will also see some more things, some basic concepts before we go into the implementation, and mainly how the time reduction which I was talking about, all this will be explained in this. So material selection process is first you have to understand the application, right? First you should know the required properties, mechanical properties, thermal properties, depending on your chemical properties, magnetic and optical. So mainly we look at the mechanical, thermal and chemical, followed by electrical, magnetic and optical, which is dependent on the application. Then next one is identify the candidate material, where we will look into the composition and the microstructure. The structure here mainly is not the macro structure but the microstructure. That is, you saw the dendrites and other things in that Nanocosmos movie, right? So what type of structure do you need? Like, do you want a two-phase microstructure, that what you saw, the bright phase and dark phase, or you want a multi-phase microstructure? What is it and how it affects each property? That is also quite important. And then identify the processing. That is also quite important. If we need a particular, we want to have structures with the least defects, like pores, cracks is something that we don't want to have. So what type of processing and how to optimize the processing in such a way that we will not. Sometimes what we do, we fabricate two structures using casting and we weld it. So whatever be the processing we are using, it should not affect the property what we want, and secondly it should not have defects that can lead to further failure. Okay, and the performance is how long the material can your structure can perform, that is the macro structure, including with the microstructure and everything inside, how long it can perform without failure. That is your performance. The longer it is and the successful it is. So for a thermal power plant, okay, how long do you think a structure has to come for? Close. 50 is too long. 20 to 25. 20 to 25 years, typically a material has to come. But when as you said, for sometimes in nuclear power plants, they come up to 40, 50 years. Okay. So that is the length scale we are looking at, right? We cannot keep changing. This is not like changing a nut or a bolt. If a thermal power plant stops, we don't get power, right? So that such type of critical applications need robust materials, okay, so that our daily life will go hassle free. So for this type of material selection, we are going to use one concept here called CalFAT based ICME, okay, for material selection and design. So we saw what is CalFAT, like it is a bridgeless, it's a bridge and a scaleless technique, okay. So now how, along with another concept called ICME, how it is useful for, and how finally the cyber steel was developed. So ICME, the full form is Integrated Computational Materials Engineering, a very, very, very powerful technique for materials design, computational materials design. So it has 5 components, as you see in these 5 hands here. Processing structure relationship. So I'll go from here. Structure property relationship. So that's where your material science starts. Processing structure relationship, that's where your materials engineering comes. Then manufacturing process simulation, right? Then product performances. So whenever you get a product, you have to check the performance, right? So product performance analysis. And finally, some constitutive models to predict the properties. So these are 5 components of ICME, which I didn't put 5 separate hands. You see, the hands are holding each other, which means what? They should communicate. So all these 5 components of ICME has to communicate, and individually also they are important. Okay, so it is integration of materials information captured with computational tools. Okay, and engineering product performance analysis and manufacturing processes simulation. So basically they have to communicate. And secondly, this pursues the integration of multiple disciplines through validated computational models. Okay, so we have, so that is the validated computational models we saw, DFT, MD, phase field, finite element and so on. So, and here structured information is transferred. So basically what I told you there is actually laying your foundation for understanding what is known as this concept, powerful concept, framework. I would rather like to call it a framework. This framework called Integrated Computational Materials Engineering. So going a bit into the history. So actually this whole concept of ICME was typically born in the US only, I should say. So which started with the birth of actually CalFAD. So that was the one of the primary computational tool that came for materials development, which is based on the thermodynamics. Okay, and then then other tools were also brought in, like special kinetic tools, and also DFT, the first principle calculations we saw, that also led to. See, all this mainly happened because from the 2000s, early 2000s, we started improving our computational power, and that's when computational material science became more and more important for materials modeling. Okay, and then the materials cyber infrastructure, this is from the National Research Council. They highlighted the need for a digital infra. You see, from the 90s, later it is in 2004 only. And after that, the blue book was, this is the most important one, the Integrated Computational Materials Engineering, a transformational discipline for improved competitiveness and national security. So this actually coined the term called ICME. And then in 2011, when the President of United States was Barack Obama, that time this very important term was coined, MGI, Materials Genome Initiative. And once that came, and they started improving the workflows. So as I told, there is structured information transfer, means it is not one technique. If we are involving multiple technique, then you should have workflow, like how information is transferred, and in each block how every information is generated, right? So once through this materials genome initiative in 2011, there was rapid development of these workflows, the ICME workflows. And then big players like Boeing, Ford, Pratt & Whitney, Lockheed Martin, okay, these are big companies in aerospace and automotive, these sorts of companies started adopting. So when is a concept being successful? When industries adopt it and make real-time products, right? Then only what we develop is kind of successful and it is helpful to the humankind. So once these big players started using ICME, then for mainly turbine blades or engine blocks. So engine blocks in automotive application and turbine blade in aerospace application, in aero engines. So this is one they started. Then eventually now after the 2020, we have the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? So now we are integrating this machine learning and artificial intelligence into these physics-based models like this DFT, CalFAD, etc., to accelerate the materials discovery and solve the inverse design problems. Okay, so this is the history of ICME. Now the types of implementation. This is a quite interesting thing to look at. So we have two ways to look into this. So if you see in the vertical way, what is changing? Submicron, micron, macro, which means length scale is changing. But if you see horizontally, what is this? So first is the metal treatment, then solidification, casting, heat treatment, machining, and then testing. Okay, so this is actually processing. So this is length scale, this is processing scale. Now depending on that, we have two types of implementation for ICME. Vertical implementation is in terms of length scales, and that is what we saw, right? Like electronic to atomistic and so on. The another, and that is called vertical implementation. Horizontal implementation is one you go through the processing steps, right? Like materials handling, casting, heat treatment, machining, and etc. Now, what we are going to see with this CalFAD based ICME is a hybrid way where processing will be linked with performance. When you look into the length scale, processing is not there. When you look into the processing, length scale is not there. So if you want to include everything, the processing has to be linked with the performance, and that is CalFAD based ICME, where you need lot of databases to get the material data, and that is what the CalFAD is going to supply. Okay, so this is the CalFET method, which is basically, classical thermodynamics combined with materials modeling to understand phase changes as a function of temperature, pressure, and composition of a material. Okay, so we want it in terms of temperature, pressure, and composition because these are the easily controllable experimental, right? You can control pressure, you can control temperature, and you can also control the composition of a material. Do you think you can control volume in solids? Right? So when it comes to gases, you control temperature, volume. But when it comes to solids, you always control the temperature and pressure. Right? Okay. So now there are seven. So here, since we are controlling the temperature, pressure, and composition, so there is something known as, so how many of you know the concept of equilibrium? So yeah, so what is equilibrium? Sorry? Forward and backward reaction is it. So that is reaction equilibrium. So when it comes to phase equilibrium, so in you have product phase and reactant phase when a chemical reaction happens. Now if we take in terms of a microstructure, I showed a two-phase material, right? A bright phase and a dark phase. Now what is equilibrium there is that even if you keep it for very long time also, right? The equilibrium state is there is no change in the microstructure. That is, if I put a material at 1000 degrees Celsius at 1 atmospheric pressure for 10 years. So typically in a power plant, for power plant application, they do testing up to 10 years. That is 10 lakh hours close to, right? So now the material property, the material's phase structure is constant. There is no more further possible change. So the final state of a microstructure is the equilibrium in this case. Unlike the reaction equilibrium where forward is equal to the backward, that is the reaction, in the phase, that is the last after which no phase transformation happens. That is equilibrium. Now we are going to define this phase equilibrium using the Gibbs energy, which is, Gibbs energy is nothing but the condition for equilibrium. So enthalpy, you might have heard of. So enthalpy is, and also entropy, right? Gibbs energy is enthalpy minus temperature into entropy. G is equal to H minus Ts. So if you take Helmholtz energy, U minus Ts, right? Internal energy minus T into entropy. The Helmholtz energy is for gases because Helmholtz energy, the controlling conditions are temperature, volume, and composition, which is for gases. For solids and liquids, it will be Gibbs energy because you cannot control the volume there, so it's temperature, pressure, and composition. So where the Gibbs energy is related to enthalpy and entropy as G is equal to H minus Ts. So this is the very basic thing for CalFET, G is equal to H minus Ts. That's it. So now you draw some common tangents for the Gibbs energy curves between different phases and try to get this one, something known as phase diagrams. That is, it is a map for phase transitions or phase changes in a material. So what we see here from liquid, this pointer, okay, this liquid transforms directly to a solid, which is alpha plus beta. But if it is this composition here, from liquid, it comes to liquid plus alpha, then alpha plus beta. But if you are in the very corner, from liquid, you cross this liquid plus alpha a little bit, then go directly into alpha, then eventually towards the end, you hit alpha plus beta. So like that, you can map the phase transitions as a function of both temperature and compositions. You can see what are the phase transitions happening in this direction, horizontally, or this direction, vertically, either at constant temperature or constant composition. And this is very important for understanding the material behavior, the phase diagrams. So several applications are there. So predicting the phase equilibria, that is the phase diagrams and so on, and the properties like enthalpy, entropy, Gibbs energy, these are all called thermochemical properties. So this is the primary application of CalFET, but then it also expanded to inputs for diffusion and precipitation simulations. And for phase field modeling, that is microstructure simulation, it also gave inputs, and inputs for ICME modeling and materials informatics, meaning like, AI and ML, that types of applications. And finally, physical quantities. Just from these thermodynamic properties, we move to other type of properties like volume, viscosity, thermal conductivity, right? So there are several other properties also which can be predicted, not just enthalpy, Gibbs energy, and entropy, etc. So some of the software packages are like we have several in the field. One is so two types: commercial, where we pay money and buy. Another one is open source. It's openly available for people to use. So the most successful program here is the Thermocalc suite of programs, originally developed in Sweden. We will be seeing that. So it has 4 different modules. So thermocalc is for equilibrium and solidification. As I told you, like when liquid transforms to solid, what are all the phases that form during the solidification? That is, when a liquid transforms to solid, what are all the solid? It's not like, if you, let's take the case of copper. Liquid copper, when it solidifies, what does it become? Solid copper. Solid copper has a particular structure. Now into that solid copper, I put some solid chromium. I mix them. It becomes an alloy. Now when I solidify this solid, now this liquid copper plus chromium, then will it be only the copper that comes out? No. It can be a solid solution where everything can get mixed and have a copper. Only copper with chromium all ingested into copper. Otherwise, chromium separately, copper separately. Now these interactions are quite, so how the solidification change, what are all the solid phases that form from a liquid phase? That is the solidification simulation. Okay, then how fast, so thermodynamics doesn't involve time? No, thermodynamics doesn't involve time. That's why it is equilibrium. The time is not considered because that is the last state in a material after which no transformation happens. So that is equilibrium, which means no factor of time. But kinetics involve time. How fast a reaction can happen? Right? In your chemistry labs, you might have done, right? Some reactions will be vigorous, some will be sluggish, right? So that is the kinetics part of it. That can be again simulated using Dictra. And third one is Prisma, TC Prisma. This is for precipitation. So you have a matrix. You keep it at a certain temperature. Precipitates come out, right? So why the precipitate come out? Because it is unable to hold that much secondary element in the matrix. So it is just coming out as precipitate, right? So this type of simulations can be done using TC Prisma. That is the precipitation simulation. And similarly we have, so this was developed in Sweden. So parallelly in America also they were developing one, and that is called PANDAT. They also have their own modules for phase diagram, diffusion, precipitation, solidification, and for phase field they have separate. Okay, and then this is all for physical metallurgy, like alloy design for structural applications. But what about, you might have studied about Bessemer converter, steel making and so on, right? What about simulating those type of things in making iron, in extracting metals from their ores? So for that we use this, that is called process metallurgy, and we use this something called FACSH. And for open source we have two. One is OpenCalFAT, another one is called PyCalFAT. PyCalFAT is based on Python. Anyone who is interested can just download in your laptop and check it out. So just a little bit into thermocalc. It is developed in Royal Institute of Technology, Stockholm, Sweden in the early 1980s, and it is a powerful software for both thermodynamic properties, phase equilibria, and thermophysical properties, which I explained. And so it is a powerful technique for wide variety of applications because it uses its thermodynamic and kinetic databases. So databases are the key here. As I mentioned in the hybrid implementation, it showed that there is need for data and databases, right? That comes from such softwares, and it is one of the widely used software. So what are all the properties? Phase stability, driving forces, the thermophysical properties, some interface. So when you do precipitation simulation, you need to know about the interfaces, like what is the energy between the matrix and the precipitate. So that interfacial energy, and some others like solidification, Porbay diagrams. So heard about Ellingham and Porbay. Ellingham diagrams you might have studied, maybe. So no. Yeah, so maybe for oxidation and so on, and Porbay diagram is for corrosion. So the implementation is like, as I mentioned, we need a database, and that is a structural file with some parameters for individual phases in the material. And then there is a minimization routine happening here, and followed by these are all the outcomes. The software will take care of all these things. Okay, what we have to supply the software is with this database, and it will give you the outcomes using the numerical engine inside. So my research mainly is involved with developing these databases for multi-component systems. So I think I will probably skip into the further facts, and we'll go to the structure property relationship. So these are, as I mentioned, these are the pillars of materials design, right? Processing, structure, property, performance, right? In processing, right, we need the metals to create or shape the methods to create or shape a material. So the key question is, how do you make it? If you have any material, can we process it? For example, I have developed a material, I cannot cast it, I can do only 3D printing. Or I have developed a material where I can do only 3D printing, I cannot cast it. So it can be a specific for the processing route. Next is structure. How the arrangement of atoms, crystals, grains, etc. in the material is at various length scales. So how do I put it together? Like what type of phases, which means how the atomic arrangement is, what is the type of arrangement, how in what angles and what orientations they are arranged, right? And accordingly how that join together. So what is a grain? It's an arrangement of atoms in a particular orientation. So what is the difference between one grain and another grain? It is like two different atomic atoms in two different orientations. Grain boundary is where that orientation breaks between the two grains. So there is no orientation in a grain boundary, but within a grain you have two different orientations. That is atomic arrangement in a certain direction, right? So that is what is the structure. And how to put all these grains together? What should be their size? How many phases do we need? Do we need single phase, two phase, multi-phase? All this comes in structure. Properties. So we have seen several, like mechanical, electrical, thermal, and magnetic. What can it do? So here comes a very important thing called design targets. Whenever you design a material, you need to have target. Like if you are studying for any subject, then you say, okay, I want to score this much, right? Which is typically 100 in your case. But when it comes to materials, let's say the strength has to be above 500 megapascal. The ductility has to be more than 20%. The corrosion resistance should be high, not just saying qualitative, it should be quantitative. Like let's say the attack in oxidation, the attack depth should not be should not be greater than some certain length at this temperature. So like that, we keep design targets, and defining these design targets are very, very important when it comes to our material design. Okay, because without having a target, you do not know what you are doing. And it is also important for the qualification aspect I told. If you have not reached the required design target, your material cannot be qualified for a certain application. Okay, and lastly, the performance. How long will it last? Like depending on application, aero engine application 5 to 10 years, power plant application 25 years, nuclear application 50 years, more than 50 years typically. A steel plant application at least 10 to 12 years. So application matters. Okay, so to get this link, so mainly what we have to get is the links between this process, structure, and property, and we are going to do using something known as this nice concept called systems design chart. So in a systems design chart, let's first look at the 3 blocks separately. So for you first define the processing steps. Okay, then what is the structure you want? What is the matrix? What is the precipitate? What type of oxidation scale you want, right? And also what type of dispersion you want, and so on. And what are all your properties? Here the targets are not given, but typically the targets are also clearly specified in this property part. That strength greater than, this is for a generic case, but eventually you want this thing, and everything finally leads to what? Performance. So processing, structure, property, performance. Now what are these lines that are linking here? Each processing step, how it affects the structure. For example, you have a step called solidification. You are doing casting, you are having the solidification. it is affecting the segregation. That is, certain elements alone getting segregated in certain parts of the material. That is called micro segregation. That is in the microstructure. So that is affecting, but it is not affecting anything else. Please note. It's not like you put lines to every box here. You need to understand how the processing happens so that it affects the structure. And when you have this structure, what property is affected. So the most important task here is to get the linkages between the processing, structure and properties. Okay? So, and that gives rise to a very nice thing called systems design chart, and this is very, very useful for designing your material. So let's go to the case study. Of course, what do you think is this component? This is a flight. Aeroplane is what component it is? Landing gear, right? Landing gear. So this is during landing, right? So you need a landing gear. Every aircraft requires something known as a landing gear. Very, very important. If landing gear fails, flight fails, right? So this is at least you accept that this is a critical component in an airplane, right? Okay. Now, aircraft landing gear is a complex system. Look at the number of components here in a landing gear. This is the total schematic of a landing gear. And what we are going to design in this case is, this gray portion, because these are actually polymer wheels, right? The structure that is going to hold the wheels, we are going to design a material for that. One, it should first come out at the right time, no? That material should not corrode once it comes out, oxidize and so on. So you'll see how what material was used before the design of the new material, what are all the problems and how it was solved. So steels are typically used. So you know steels, right? It's actually a metallic alloy of iron, carbon, etc., right? So it is used in landing gears. So the steels used in landing gears, we require certain properties. What are they? Superior strength, corrosion resistance, and this is a new property called stress corrosion cracking. So what is typically corrosion? I keep a piece of iron here. Maybe I put it in water. What happens? It rusts. Now, I put the same piece of iron. I am compressing it and still putting it in water. So what are all so in the first case, only environment affected, right? In the second case, stress and environment. So that is called stress corrosion cracking. So corrosion is happening in the presence of stress, and that is typically an accelerated corrosion. If you put the iron piece in water without stress and with stress, the one with stress will corrode faster, because stress plus corrosion accelerates the corrosion and the degradation of the material. Okay, and that is also quite important here. So you are having corrosion in the landing gear, but you will also have stress because it is hitting the runway, right? So it has to withstand that stress also. So stress corrosion cracking. So traditionally a type of steel called 300M steel was used. But what are the problems? It is, so you know stainless steels, right? Why stainless steels are called stainless steels? No rusting, right? But unfortunately this 300M was non-stainless, which means it is prone to rusting. So that is what general corrosion cannot be avoided in that case. And vulnerability to stress corrosion cracking. And because it is non-stainless, they started using cadmium coatings. What is the problem with cadmium? Sorry? Explosive, actually toxic. Basically, it's more than explosive, it is toxic. Why people are avoiding the lead and the cadmium so on? Because in longer time, if you keep inhaling the vapors of cadmium and lead, you will be developing diseases. So cadmium coating is not preferred. So we have to develop a new steel which is stainless and doesn't require any coating and also avoid the corrosion and stress corrosion cracking. So now this we have defined our problem now. Now how we, so this is just, 5-part design this is. You have materials design, and what is this AIM? Accelerated insertion of materials. Accelerated insertion of material means that faster replacement and a drop-in replacement. We'll see what is drop-in replacement soon. Okay, so you have 5 types here in materials, where you have conceptual, parametric, embodiment, detail, and quality. See, accelerated insertion requires qualification. Whatever design you do without qualification, your material will not go into the application, right? So what it shows here is these are all the computational techniques used in the different parts of the development, and these are all the experimental techniques used. So experimental techniques is mainly used during the materials design only, but when it comes to accelerated insertion, mainly we use only computational techniques. So this is the full paradigm used, which is quite complex, but how long did it take to use this, we will be seeing soon. So this is the case now. So instead of the 300M steel, they developed a new steel called Ferrium S53. This is developed by a company named Questech LLC, which is in the United States. Started by, anyone heard of Northwestern University in the US? So it's near Chicago, right? So it is actually a global leader in implementing integrated computational materials engineering. And why I took this example is, this is the first successful case study for developing a material using ICME and went into commercial use also. So their mission is to reduce the time and cost for materials development, typically from 10 to 20 years by half. But actually what they achieved is actually a very small duration, like they made it up to 3 years. Material development from 10 to 20 years became 3 years with the ICME, and they are going to use this materials by design approach. So what did they do? They did this drop-in replacement. Now what is drop-in replacement? It is like just changing battery in this. But for changing the battery in this, you are just opening, putting the battery inside, and again you are starting. If I say to change the battery, you have to remove all these buttons and everything, and again sit and reassemble this. There is a difference, right? So drop-in replacement is just like changing battery in this pointer. Okay, like you open it, just take out something and push in something, plug and play. So that is called, and that is what is important when we try to design materials. What we need is drop-in replacement. We don't want reassembling, because time, you will waste time in again reassembling and things. So they wanted offering a good mechanical property and also providing corrosion resistance. So this in drop-in replacement, it is directly substituted with the existing one without modification, reconfiguration and downtime. Basically, we don't, for changing some landing gear in a plane, it should not take like, some 1 year to reassemble the aircraft or something. It's like just remove the old landing gear and put this landing gear. That's what we want. So the plug and play compatibility. So how did this was done by Questech is, they used this CalFAT concept for getting a high strength steel with certain dispersion, that is the precipitate. The precipitate is M2C carbide. And the matrix is something known as a martensitic matrix. So martensite is a very interesting phase in a steel, where it is a transformation that happens without diffusion. Okay, it is caused just by shear stress. Have you heard of shear stress? Like the sliding, when the stress created by sliding, right? It is a shear transformation without diffusion, a very important phase transformation which imparts high hardness. Okay, then they did property modeling. They used certain mechanisms for improving the stress corrosion cracking to optimize the chemistry of the grain boundaries. And lastly, they used computational predictions to focus on the hardening and precipitation behavior. So what are the key features they got? They got a very good corrosion resistance, and by adding sufficient chromium. So why chromium is important here? Because it can form Cr2O3 oxide films, right? Another element which can do something like that, like Cr2O3, aluminum, correct. But the problem in adding aluminum is it doesn't impart as much strength like chromium, and aluminum melting point is less. So we go for chromium, which has a higher melting point. High strength and toughness, they got a very high strength of 1930 megapascal. Not at, you will see steel's only 600, 800 megapascal, 1930 megapascal, and comparable to and superior to some of the other types of stainless steels like 15.5 and 17.4 pH, and cadmium free, no coating required. No coating required in the newly developed sphere. It has inherent corrosion resistance thanks to the chromium. Okay, so it was a simple fix with adding more chromium and creating precipitation. I won't say a simple fix, but that is a clever fix of adding chromium. Okay, and also imparting some precipitation using the carbides to improve the strength as well as the corrosion resistance. And finally, anything has to be manufactured with ease, right? You cannot have like, I developed a very good material with good properties, but I am not able to manufacture. It's a complex design, the landing gear, right? It has to be casted or done. So they made sure that there is also good manufacturability and less distortion. Distortion is a trouble. So you should always have less, otherwise your design will go. So generally you make a design and you have a factor of safety, right? Because you give some tolerances. What if your component goes bad, your component goes beyond the factor of safety or the tolerance, which means your component is bad, the design is bad, right? So manufacturability is also important, that was taken care. And application. So it was for landing gear and critical structural components initially for the US Air Force. But eventually, whenever you develop these materials, what happens and it gets qualified is companies buy it. So eventually, Carpenter Technology, which is it's a US-based company. We have one in, I think, Sriperumbudur here, Carpenter Technology. So Carpenter Technology bought it. So now they are though these people, the Questec patented and everything, they bought. That is called technology transfer. Okay. And so the first landing gear was used in December 2010. Okay. Now, but before the December 2010, we will see now two things. TTO I talked about, technology transfer. But before technology transfer, we need to see our product development in terms of something known as TRL. Technology, any idea? TRL? Technology readiness level. Okay, and followed by TTO, and then it goes into your application, licensing, and etc. So this is the composition, and why I highlighted cobalt here is because cobalt is not an element that is commonly added in steels. The number of class of steels that has cobalt is very less. So the clever way of designing this is they added cobalt with good amount of chromium to form the oxide scale, and also this molybdenum to form the precipitate, and other elements for their strengthening purposes. And just wanted to show you how the system design chart for this looks. You see here they have clearly defined the design targets. Yield strength, so this is in KSI units, it's the American units. So 280 and 230, you see aqueous corrosion greater than 15.5 pH. Stress corrosion cracking, they have a limit. Everything, the target is clearly defined. And then the structure is also clearly defined. What are all how the matrix should be, how the dispersions should be, how the passive film, when the oxidation happens, that should be, and so on. So this is actually a detailed and well-defined systems design chart, which is very useful for design. Now coming to TRL. So this is something that was developed by NASA. Okay, and there are 9 levels in TRL, that is technology readiness level. So this is how it looks. 0 is idea. You can talk between two people, can talk and say, okay, this is the idea. Now, how will you change from this idea to a full product? Defines the different steps in the TRL. So TRL 0 is just idea, like, two people can sit and talk. Then you start doing some research on it. Maybe you check literature and maybe do some few experiments. Then technology formulation, right? So next one is, okay, then you are going to the next level. You understood how everything, you are quite successful. Then the concept and application has been formulated. Then validation of your needs, right? Like who I can talk with companies and try to understand. Because whatever I do in lab scale, can it be translated directly to the component scale? What is the limiting factor there? That also still can be, because whatever casting is there we can do here. But what is the thing that is the biggest difference from a lab scale to component scale? Finance is okay. Size. For example, I cannot make a full size landing gear in my lab in IIT Madras. I cannot make we have a model aeroplane in our aerospace department in front, but do you think in my lab space I cannot develop a full scale airplane, right? So it is the size that matters. So always the size has to translate from lab scale to pilot scale to this one, the full scale, that is the part scale, right? So then small scale prototype. So here where you start. So that is the pilot scale, a small prototype. Then large scale prototype, that is the real component prototype, right? And then you test it, demonstrate it, and then you go to company showing, you know what, I have developed this. But you should patent it. Otherwise company will scoop it. So you will patent it and go to companies. Like, you know what, I have patented this. This is my technology. And after that, it will, if the company buys, it goes for full commercial application. So all this comes under these different stages of TRL, from TRL 0 being the idea formulation to TRL 9, which is full commercial application. Okay, so it's nice to see, we have different ways or so, but where most of the technology dies. So this is called the valley of death. Academia, like IITs, like us, IITs, we work between, TRL 0 is, you cannot really connect because it's like, two people speaking so on. So let's start from TRL 1, where we start our basic research. TRL 1 to 4 is typically done in academia. You see, technology validation in lab, right? And TRL 7 to 9, you see, system prototype, qualified, deployment. This companies will do. Now, where the problem comes? In bridging this gap. That is technology validated and demonstrate, validation and demonstration. That is the gap between the academia and industry. That leads to valley of death in between. So the solution is that is many people go for startups. So they have their own small startup. They try to use it for the demonstration in pilot scale. Lab scale, we can do in our labs. Component scale, company can do. Who will do the pilot scale? We need small, medium-sized companies or startup or research labs to do that, right? So that's where this. So if the gap between industry and academia is where we have this valley of death. Medium, like lab scale means, let's say this turbine blade, we'll take the case of original turbine blade is 10 meters. In lab, I am printing, printing, let's say, a few centimeters. So that is a medium in between, which is neither like for lab scale, in my case, I can get only, because first of all, our labs are small, okay? So we can do for only certain sizes, small sizes. Company needs big sizes. But the thing is, cost is the concern here. So something in the middle, that is pilot scale. Any pilot scale plant is a miniature of the original component scale.
So can it be used to validate the idea to bigger?
Yes, that is why I told this gap should be bridged by startups. No. Industry level, you think what is the big industry? Okay, Brakes India, Wheels India, anything you have visited somewhere? Okay, let's in the Avadi area, you have this tube investments, BSA cycles, right? The scale of that size is not required. So then we have our own IITM research park where we have medium-sized companies which are working on this. Okay, medium sized. So you don't need huge land. See, what are all the major things? Space, electricity, manpower. I can say 10% of what is required for something like TVS or some big automotive company here, we have Hyundai or so on. 10% of that will be required for this startup. And our lab scale typically run by PhD students or master students or even undergraduate students. So this is the value of death which I do. So now we are coming to the last part of the talk, which is, I think I'm close. Yeah. What is the time taken? Typically 20 years. Now what they did, I told in 2010 it was already deployed, okay, in US Air Force. So they started in Jan 2000, right? And they already completed 5 design iterations by Jan 2001. Design iterations meaning computational design iterations. Then so this is, let's see for S53 because M54 is an offspring of S53, so the time reduced even further. So then by you see around like 2000, so design goals established, prototype came, first multi-ton casting. Okay, all these are generally done in multi-tons. Okay, first multi-ton casting happened in 2005. Okay, and then they will do multiple, so 2 to 3 castings. Okay, and third happened here. Then specifications were issued, and then 10th multi-ton ingot scale casting happened, additional property developed, deployed. So from 2000 to 2010 we are already done, which will typically including the qualification because handbook has been updated. Generally you have design handbook has been updated. So from 20 years we have here they have taken 8.5 years for Ferrium S53. But M54 is a modification of S53. It took only 5 years. M54 started here. Design goals, everything established. Prototype already came here. So you see whatever took from 2000 to 2008 is now from 2008 to 2011. In 3 years. In 3 years they got the specifications issued. And around like 14 it was qualified and ready for deployment. So this is very important. Rather than waiting for 20 years to develop a material, materials can be developed in just within 10 years. But what is it? We have to have our design, we have to have our foundations clear. Design targets, what composition we want, microstructure, everything. And we have to simulate. We need to have correct ICME workflow from navigating through different length scales to get the property what we want to be simulated. Okay, so this is So what is the summary of the design now? Chemistry was altered, right? And for passive oxide layer and to stabilize martensite, everything was done. Strengthening using the precipitates. They use the kinetic model and everything to get what type of precipitate they want and how to avoid certain precipitates that they don't want to form. Then optimization using some type. So here one nice thing they did is they even did cryogenic heat treatment. You know, cryogenic heat treatment means going in sub-zero. So they did some sub-zero temperature heat treatments also to achieve the yield strength that they want. It is typically, you see the numbers, 1550 megapascal. Not a small number. It's a very high strength material. And lastly, time to market. They reduced it by 50%. From 20 years to 10 years, 8.5 years. So more than 50%. This is the first computationally designed alloy in a flight critical component. That is this Ferrium S53 steel, a first success story for ICME design. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much. So any questions? On time? Okay. No, that's what, we need different models for different scales. And that's what I showed each model for DFT for electronic, MD for molecular dynamics for atomistic, microstructure scale we had phase field, and macro scale it was finite element, yeah. So it cannot be done in single. That unification into a single model is hard, or I can say as of now it is impossible. Maybe in the future it's possible. But right now, what we need to have is the right workflow for us to, or framework for different models to communicate and transfer information. And that's the whole crux of this ICME. Coatings, yeah. Yes. So actually, there are two ways. That will become like composite, what you are telling. So if you mix like and make metal as matrix and ceramics as the reinforcement, it is composite. Next, another option is using laminates, having metal sheet, ceramic sheet, a sandwich composite structure. So you have two options. Either you mix them into a two-phase microstructure, or have laminates, which can be, compressed and made into separate sheets. So laminates is commonly used in aerospace applications.
I would like to sincerely thank Professor Soumya for engaging lecture on materials. Your lecture really helped us see the stark difference between science and engineering. The example involving the Titanic and Norwegian ship also helped us see how much materials have actually evolved in the last century. This shows the evolution and improvement in material building over the years. The intro to CalFAR, ICME, and all its practical applications, along with the case study, were also extremely interesting to listen to. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed the lecture. Thank you so much.